For 2025, I'm forecasting vintage vibes, plenty of florals, and lots of pops of colour. This bullet journal theme has been in the workings for months, but it's actually not for me. In fact, this entire journal is for you. So make sure you stick around all the way to the end of the video if you'd like to find out how to enter the giveaway. Hi, my name is Erin. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. I have to give a huge shout out to Beck from Sassy Pigeon HQ for supplying the journal that I'm using for the mystery journal for the first half of 2025. This is her Sage Leaves grid journal and it is linked in the description along with everything else that I'm using in this video. It's an A5 journal with 160 grid pages of 160 GSM paper, so everything that I look for in an A5 journal, and I get the pleasure of filling it up. I'm going for a green and magenta color scheme this time, and my wonderful channel members helped me pick this out in a live stream several months ago. Thank you so much to my channel members. Honestly, you make it so much easier for me to come up with these things. Let's start off with a super fun, very indulgent double spread cover spread with a window in it. This is purely decorative. I was just having a really good time. These medieval style papers I got from JOURNALSAY a long time ago. They don't sell them anymore, but they are still available online in some other places. What I mostly want out of these ones is the frame. So I'm using a little craft knife, Stanley knife, utility knife, whatever you want to call this, and I'm cutting out that internal design, and we're just going to keep the frame for this one. I haven't thrown away the paper from the inside. I may end up using that in some other way in the future, but for now, we're just going to use the frames. And it was from these frames that I took the pinky purpley magenta color that I'm going to be using as an accent color throughout most of this setup, but the main color we're going to be using is green. These are just such a perfect fit for my own personal bullet journaling style. I love vintage things, I love Art Nouveau kind of designs, I love frames, so this is the perfect intersection of all of those things. I wanted to really give these a moment here on the cover spread, so I'm using the shape of the one on the right, just tracing it out in pencil on the page, approximately the middle of the page, and I'm going to be cutting out that same shape with my craft knife so that there's a window through to the page on the other side. And I wanted to have the numbers for the year of 2025 nice and big and bold in this design, so I thought it would be cool to put them inside the window. I feel like I have to put a little disclaimer, a little caveat on this video. I filmed this just after I got back from a really big holiday and I was jet lagged to the gods. And I think it shows. I was out of practice with journaling things. I hadn't really been doing anything this structural for a while, and I just didn't really think that clearly. I feel like I made some rookie mistakes setting this one up, so please enjoy the entertainment factor of that. I'm matching up the positioning of the frame on the left page to approximately the same as the right page, but I'm not going to be cutting a window into this one. I'm just tracing the pencil here so I can see where it's going to sit before I stick this down, but that's where the 20 is going to go of the 2025, and the 25 is going to go on the other side. I'm using a font called IM English SC as my reference for my 2025 here, and you can see it kind of has some texture on my phone screen there. I tried to imitate that a little bit with the markers that I used, but I didn't need it to be exact, and I think we did okay. I've actually been taking a calligraphy course for the past 2 weeks and I have 2 more weeks to go, and it's on traditional Roman lettering, and I can see kind of some of that coming through here. I've been learning a lot about the history of calligraphy through this course, so that's been really exciting. I think it's going to make my lettering better in 2025. But before we actually jump in and letter those numbers for 2025, I want to put some more decoration down first. I love to layer in my journals, so I'm using some origami paper from Daiso. That's what this kind of green and yellow floral situation is. I truly couldn't recommend origami paper enough as an option for decorative journaling supplies because it has to be nice and thin in order to fold, so it doesn't bulk up your journal too much and it's easy to tear, so I really like those things about it. Just working out from my Artex paint markers which one is going to be the best fit here, and typically when I approach lettering things I would usually use longer strokes, but I wanted that texture, so I'm using actually very short kind of choppy strokes in order to get that kind of textured edge on the letters. And I'm going to come back in with the darker magenta, purple, pink kind of color too, and outline these ones just to give them some extra dimension too. Now here's a fun thing about this window. When I flip the window page to the left, it's still framing the 20 of the beginning of the half of the year, and when it's flipped to the right, it's framing the 25. It would have worked even better if I'd had just the same piece of scrapbooking paper a few times so that I could use the same frame repeatedly, but I didn't have that luxury, so we're going to have to vary them a little bit, but it's going to turn out okay. Here's the first of my rookie errors, and I am embarrassed at how long it takes me to realize that I'm doing this wrong. This frame that I'm about to stick around the 25 is supposed to go on the previous page, on the other side of the window. Whoops. And it's quite delicate paper too, so when I realize that, it's going to do some damage when I peel it back up, but that's okay, it's all part of the process. So mistakes, unfortunately, happen, and I try to mitigate them as much as I can in this journal because it's not actually for me, but sometimes it's unavoidable, so at least if you enter the giveaway, you know what you're getting, right? In fact, this paper is so delicate that just using the glue tape on it in the places where I'd cut it down to be quite thin was enough to make it tear, as you just saw, so I was able to kind of finagle it back into place when I was putting it down here so it doesn't look like it was torn, but something to be aware of if you have this in your collection. Be very, very gentle with this paper. I think what we're about to do with a floral PET tape on the right page there is one of my new favorite ways to use PET tape because I've never really done this with it before and I love the effect. So I'm taking strips that are as long as the page and I am just covering as much of the page as I can with a single strip of tape, and then I'm going to lay another one right next to it and do the same thing. We're going to cut out the edges of the tape and the window in the middle, of course, and then it's going to look like you laid one big sheet of this floral pattern down, as though it was always meant to look like that, and I love that effect so much. While we're working on this PET tape, I thought I would tell you a little bit about the Mystery Journal project in case this is your first time coming across it. This journal is the third mystery journal that I have prepared. It is a journal that I fully set up for 6 months of the year, so not just the setup that we're doing in this video together today, but there'll also be January, February, March, April, May, and June of 2025 in this journal before the end of November. Yes, I have a lot of work to do, so I pre-shoot all of those videos and I will release one on my channel every month for the first 6 months of 2025, but this journal is going to be given away in the next 2 weeks. It will be fully completed and sent off to the winner so that they, if it's you, maybe you, if it's not you, they can use that journal for the first half of next year. Ah, look at that, I finally realized that frame is on the wrong page. Let's peel it up and fix it, and I'll keep chatting about this project. So why would I want to set up a journal that's for some mystery person? A few reasons, actually. The first being that I'm in a really privileged position to be sent a lot of stationery for free, and there's no way I could ever possibly use it all for myself, and sometimes the things don't quite align with my own personal style, but I think they're lovely and I'd like to play with them. This journal gives me the opportunity to do that, and I could just do that and then put the journal on a shelf and never look at it again, but I think this way is much more fun. It also forces me to approach a journal in a different way. I'm a self-employed person, and the way that I use my own bullet journal is quite specific and maybe doesn't apply to the average person, so this way I can kind of think about what the average person might be looking for in a journal and provide some more general inspiration and suggestions. Like, this journal pretty much has to be universally usable, so I like the challenge of trying to come up with ways to make it fit that. And the last reason is honestly purely selfish. I really like just having a video already pre-shot every month that I don't have to do anything but edit, voiceover, upload, good to go. That really helps with my workflow, so it's mutually beneficial, I guess. The next video for this particular journal won't go up until December, so the giveaway will have already closed by the time the January is posted, so you're just gonna have to go in blind and kind of trust me on whether or not you want to enter or not, but you can see the playlists of my previous mystery journals on my channel if you want to get an idea of kind of what the previous ones have looked like. That'll probably give you a pretty good idea of my journal style and what to expect. Planners and bullet journals are very good ways to embrace slow living, I think. They're kind of the slower way to plan, but maybe the way that sticks in your head a little bit more, and I really like that about the entire paper and pen system. So hopefully wherever this journal ends up, it will help bring a little slowness to someone's life. Speaking of which, now seems like a fantastic time to introduce today's sponsors, Skillshare. Before I left for my holiday in October, I burned myself out. I was pre-shooting videos to publish while I was away, plus working outside of YouTube things, plus family and friend commitments. I had quite a few up until 2 AM editing nights, and it sucked. Thankfully, Skillshare suggested Carl Honoré's class How to Thrive in a Fast World by Slowing Down, and I haven't finished it yet, but Carl's bite-sized lessons on taming technology and taking breaks and saying no have been so eye-opening for me. Did you know it can take 23 minutes to get back on task if a notification distracts you when you're on a roll? Yikes! Yes, this is a Skillshare class from their lifestyle category, and you probably already know Skillshare as the largest online learning community for creators with thousands of industry expert-led classes where you learn a new skill by actually doing it. But did you know exactly how broad the range of topics are? It's not just painting and photography and calligraphy, although those are some of my favorite corners of Skillshare. It's also music and productivity and marketing and leadership. I've also spotted coding and languages and cooking and stock market investing classes. Whatever it is you've been wanting to learn, chances are Skillshare has the class for you. We all get to thinking about gratitude at this time of year, whether it's because of Thanksgiving for my US pals, or just the natural reflectiveness we can't help but feel as a year draws to a close. I am so grateful to have Skillshare to turn to when I need help with literally any part of my life as a creative professional, whether it's an artistic hurdle or a business issue or just enjoying a hobby. Whether you're looking forward to some hobby learning yourself over the holiday season or gearing up to launch a new business in 2025, I know you'll be grateful to have Skillshare in your corner too. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. We aren't quite done with this cover spread just yet. I have some more decorations I want to put in here. Unfortunately, this washi tape with lots of different gold and pink designs on it, I cannot find anywhere online anymore. I'm pretty certain I got it from JOURNALSAY a while ago and I've just kind of been sitting on it, but I can't find it anywhere on their site anymore at all. I've tried even a Google reverse image search and usually that shows up some results for it somewhere online, but just doesn't seem to exist anymore. I'm so sorry. I can't even link you to something similar. But we'll use a few elements from that. I'm also using some leftover little bugs from a sticky sheet. I'm using some lace that's from the Baroque lace set from the washi tape shop. I really wanted to make sure I was getting some more of that pink element in here, and that is what this washi tape is going to be really useful for. I definitely seem to have a lot more green than pink, but we've done it. This is the finished cover spread. Let's move on to the first functional spread, which is going to be for the future log or calendar for the first 6 months of the year. In order to make this fit really well on a single spread, I'm going to make a Dutch door out of the right page, so we're going to cut off half of the page and put 3 months to a spread, if that makes sense. So January, February and March will go on the front, and then on the back of the Dutch door we'll have April and then May and June on the next page. I'm trying out a new layout for this future log. I usually like to have the calendar at the top and then space for anything that's going on in that month underneath, but I thought it could be fun to mix it up a little bit this time, so I'm including some decoration quite lightly at the top and bottom of each spread, and I'm going to place the calendars this time in the center of the page vertically, so there's room both above and below them to write any events. And this is really handy if you are someone who likes to separate things like birthdays from other kind of events that you might have coming up, or you might want to separate school and personal things, or work and personal things, or anything else that makes sense to you. Since I know this journal's only going to cover the first 6 months of 2025, I'm only including 6 months worth of planning space here, and I will include a single page for the rest of the year, but as far as intensive planning, I'm just doing 6 months for this one. If you were going to do a full year in a journal because you know that's how much you can get out of it, then obviously you could take up some more space. Maybe you'd have March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October all on Dutch doors, or maybe you would not cut a Dutch door, or maybe you just do this kind of setup but twice over. It's totally up to you. I thought I was being so smart by using silicone stamps to do the numbers for each of these months, because I thought that's going to save me so much time and save my hands. I don't have to write stacks of tiny numbers. And then I immediately messed up. This January was actually, I was looking at December in my phone calendar and not January, which means I've put the wrong month here. It's not supposed to start on a Sunday. January 2025 actually starts on a Wednesday, so wow, way to mess up. But thankfully, I have these windows that I cut out of the journal earlier. I'm going to lay that paper over the top and match up the dots as best I can so that we can hopefully pretend that the mistake never happened, and we will stamp it again. If you're using a similar system like the stamps to me, I recommend grabbing a pencil and marking where the first of each month should go before you get anywhere near an ink pad. I've been bullet journaling for 7 years at this point, so I should definitely know better than to ink all of the numbers on a February stamp, but I went ahead and put 31 for February, which we all know is incorrect. So thankfully I have a white paint marker that can come to the rescue, and of course keeping the offcuts of your paper is a really good way to fix mistakes like this, but it took me a minute to really get my head around these stamps. I've never used this kind of stamp for dates before in my journal, and it was much more difficult than I was expecting, or maybe it was the jet lag, I don't know. Regardless, it was not my brightest hour. If you're also doing something like this, I really recommend keeping a little wet wipe handy so you can wipe off the ink from any numbers that shouldn't be stamped down, like the 29, 30, 31 on February. I could have just wiped that away and that would have been much easier. Or you can use a little mask. You can pop some other paper underneath the stamp that will just cover that area so that that part of the stamp doesn't touch your page. Second time's a charm though, right? Let's do it again for April, May, and June. I'm also opting to include some pink stickers that I didn't include on the cover spread. These ones are just much smaller. They're from Lace & Whimsy Studio. I've had these ones in my collection for quite a while, and I don't know if I think they completely go with the style of some of the other vintage things that I'm including. They might be a bit more modern, but I really did want that pop of pink, so I think it was worth it. You can see when I go to stamp these April numbers that I have definitely learned from my mistakes. I've got a little bit of paper handy and I'm trying to just blot off the 31 because there are only 30 days in April. That didn't work as well as I would have liked. I still got a little impression of a 31 on the page there, and not all of the numbers stamped very well, so I kind of went again and now they have a bit of a shadow. To my dear and sweet eventual winner of this mystery journal, I am very sorry about all of the mistakes in these first couple of spreads. I hope that you will just enjoy them as the hallmark of a handmade piece. It's all still fully functional, the journal will work just fine, but it is just going to be a little imperfect, and I think that's okay. Working out through this stamping process that actually covering the stamp that you don't want to include with some paper before you add your ink to the back of the stamp, wow, that really worked better than all of the other ways that I've tried. So don't make my mistakes. I've made them for you, so you don't have to. Here's my little grid spacing guide for this spread in case you'd like to recreate it in your own journal. It's a tricky one to share. You really just find the middle and then kind of place the calendar around that vertically. Now let's move on to the long-term future log, which is going to be for the second half of 2025, and that's just going on one page because there's not going to be as much planning for the second half of the year as the first half in this journal. Even though I feel like I had a pretty bad time with the stamps, I'm going to stick to them for the sake of consistency for this spread, and I'm just going to have a little bit of space on the right side of each of these calendars, which is where the planning will happen, so any important dates can be written down in that space. The right page here is going to be for setting some goals for 2025, and I feel like we all approach our goal setting for the year a little bit differently. I actually never ended up setting any goals for 2024 in my own journal, even though I had a space for it, so that's kind of funny. But in previous years, I've divided my goals up into work goals and personal goals and financial goals and things like that, so I wanted to make sure there's enough room for the winner of this journal to do that if they want to, or to just write some long form things about their goals if they would prefer. I also wanted to use the opportunity here to get some of my larger decorative pieces onto the page, so especially this beautiful gate, door, portal kind of a thing. So gorgeous. I knew I wasn't going to get many chances to use that piece of the design, and it's a very short design loop on this washi tape, so I had to jump on it while I could. I thought I would stick to my stamps theme for my heading, so I'm using my good old letter stamps that I use for everything all the time with the same marker to add my goals heading at the top here. And it's nice and small, so if the winner of this journal doesn't want to have a goals page for whatever reason, they can cover this with a sticker and use this page for something else. Here's the grid spacing for these two pages. I did end up adding some grey lines to my goals page, but I didn't capture that on camera, sorry about that. I'm also so sorry that I didn't capture the initial setup for this spread at all. I'm jumping in from the decoration part here, but I think you're pretty smart. I think you could figure out what I've done, and I will give you the grid spacing once we get towards the end of this spread. This one is for cash flow tracking, for money tracking, for finance tracking, whatever you want to call it. This one is about money. And once I've got all this decoration on the page, I'll show you how I would suggest that you use it as well, in case you're interested in how this one might work. There are a few different ways you can approach it, which I think is important when I don't know whose hands this journal's going to end up in. I need it to be pretty flexible. Then again, I don't know, maybe my headings make it really obvious what each section is for. Choose your own adventure, I suppose. Here's the grid spacing guide for this one. You can take a screenshot if you like, and here's how I suggest you use it. The goal section, you can decide what your saving goal is here and color this in as you achieve each increment. I've made it 20 dot grid spaces tall so that hopefully it's easy to divide into whatever increments you might need. The income section can be used in a couple of different ways. You might use the left column to break the year into segments, so maybe weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, how much your income would be, and in the right column you can add the amount that you earn for that period. Or if you have a bunch of different income streams, you can use each of these lines for that instead. This ties into the budget section where you will break down how much you want to spend across different categories. Say it's per month or per fortnight or per week, whatever it is for you, you can use that section to define those things. And if you need more space in any of these sections, you can just grab a ruler and draw a line with a black marker through the center of these, and then you will have double the amount of space. Moving on to the bills and expenses section, this is pretty obvious and self-explanatory, I think, but any recurring bills, whether they are monthly or annual ones, you can write them here and how much they are, so that when you're setting up your budget, you kind of know what you're dealing with. And for the savings section, either you could check in here quarterly and write down the total amount you have in your savings to compare from one quarter to the next, or if you have separate savers within your bank, you can put in what your opening amounts were there and compare it to where you're at the end of the journal. That's it for our finance spread, so let's turn the page and move on to one that's all about tracking. I'm going to start with decoration first this time, and one of my favorite ways to use a wide PET tape like this is to cut it down the middle and then place it so that it's on the opposite sides, so that you have this little bit of something peeking out, and then you can layer another washi tape or another PET tape over that and get this really cool layered effect. As I mentioned, this spread is for tracking, and this is one of those situations where you might need to be able to see a bunch of data for the whole year at a glance. This is a year in pixels, and I like to do it in a kind of different way. So you actually get 2 pixels for each day, which means you can track 2 things separately, or you can just keep it to 1 if you prefer and use the whole space for just tracking one thing. Essentially, this is just a big grid that has space for a square for every single day of the year. You could also set this up in a 6-month version if you prefer, but I figure if you're going to be tracking important data, it's good to have the whole year in one space, so I've just done the whole year across this spread. And you'll see as I'm drawing out the lines for the right side, they aren't all going to be the same length because not every month is the same length. So what kind of stuff could you track here? Truly anything you think would be helpful, but some suggestions that I know some of my friends use. Some of my friends will track their mood versus a medication that they've been prescribed, if it has a side effect that might affect their mood or if it's designed to help their mood. I have friends who have chronic pain who do a similar thing where they track their pain level for the day versus what they ate or things like that. You could use it to track something that you're trying to do every day, like exercise or drinking enough water. I've seen people use colors to track the weather in their city and have this really cool map of what the weather did at the end of the year, which is also really fun and just enjoyable data to have. You could use it to track which days you read a book, or which days you played video games, or which days you watched movies, whatever your hobbies are that you're interested in, which days you knitted or crocheted or journaled or anything like that. So the possibilities here are truly endless. I did not come up with the idea of a year in pixels as a tracker. I don't know where it originated, but it is a really smart one. So if you haven't tried one in your journal before, maybe this is your sign to, and maybe it's my sign to, because I've actually never had a year in pixels in my own journal. Now you can't have a year in pixels style tracker without a key, so I'm just adding that up at the top here. This is just a space to write whatever it is that you're tracking and then assign a color or a pattern to it there. If you're using colored markers, I also recommend writing down what color they are, especially if they're the tombos, like the 3-digit code, so that you can make sure that you don't forget throughout the year. I'm enjoying how this spread looks, but it needed some pink, and I've dipped back into my collection again to find what else I have, because I'd used everything I wanted to use from my Lace and Whimsy sheet. These ones I got from JOURNALSAY a while ago. They are bow stickers, and they're very girly. They're a little bit more frou-frou than I would have gone for this spread, but I do think that they work. I've gone for some of the less Barbie style ones, I guess, and I think it's cute. Here's our year in pixels grid spacing guide in case you'd like to recreate one of these for yourself. We're going to turn the page now and move on to a very self-care oriented spread. Starting with the left page, the first thing we're doing here is a self-care bingo, which I think I want to include in my own journal for next year as well. This one is a 5x5 bingo, which means you need to complete 5 things from left to right to get a bingo line. And because there are then 25 things on the bingo that you can complete, it works out to a pretty neat, almost exactly 1 thing a week. So if you're just doing one of these things a week, then you are going to complete the self-care bingo pretty well within the 6 months of the first half of 2025. I took my inspiration for these bingo items from some other self-care bingos that I found online, so this is not original to me by any means, but the idea here is that if you're not feeling your greatest, you can refer to this page and choose one of the things from the list here and do that thing to help yourself to feel a little bit better. And ideally, by the end of the first half of the year, you'll have done all of the things and you'll be feeling pretty good. On the right page, I'm stealing this idea directly from the wonderful Jashi Corinne. She used to call this one her long-term to-dos, but has switched the name to Future Me Problems, and I think that's really cute, and I want one of these in my journal as well, so I'm going to make sure to include one for our giveaway winner. This is just a table where you can write down things that you've been meaning to get around to, things that you want to do in the long term that you haven't got to yet, that don't need to be as pressing as to go onto an immediate to-do list that's on a weekly or something. It's something you're gonna do eventually. Because the bulk of the planning happens in the center of the spreads for these ones, I'm going to put my decoration at the top and bottom. I've been using this William Morris design from Paper Blanks quite a bit because it's got the green and the pink kind of present. It's a little more blue-green, but I think it works. And on the left side, I have a little bit more decoration space to play with, so I can use my lace PET tape from the Washi tape shop. On the right side, we're not going to be able to get away with it for this one. There's just not quite enough space for that, so I'll be using one from Paper Monogatari instead that's a little bit thinner. Also, one of my best tips if you're using letter stamps to add your headings like I'm doing here is to start from the middle of your heading and work your way to the left and right from there, because then you're always going to end up with a centered heading. You might need to count the letters, but it will be worth it in the end, I promise. Those of you who have been watching the mystery journal unfold over the past year might recognize this candelabra sticker. I used these ones in my October setup, and this one was just still kicking around in my collection, so I thought, oh, we'll have a little bit of the last mystery journal in this one too. I like that idea. Highlighting every alternate line is something that I love doing in my journals, and I've done it in a couple of other places in this setup as well, but I either missed the recording or just didn't mention it. So what I love about this is the way that it adds a bit of interest to the page without you having to really do anything decorative. It's subtle, but it's interesting, and it helps you stay on track with the functional part of the spread that you're using too, so I couldn't recommend it enough. Here's the grid spacing guide for this spread. This is actually the last of the functional spreads we're going to set up for this video, but moving into 3 more spreads we're going to do. These ones are where I like to bake in some flexibility for the person who wins this journal. So if I haven't thought of something that they need covered, this is where they can do that. The first way I'm going to approach that is by dividing this spread into 6, so if they wanted to use a space for each month, they could. This could be a space for reflection, it could be a space for memory keeping, it could be a space for keeping track of birthdays or something else, assignments, work projects. They could add little calendars to these spaces if they wanted to, or they can just decorate it and have a really good time. I want this to be really functional and still have lots of room for planning, so I'm not going to go too hard on decoration for this one. I'm just going to add a little bit of PET or washi on alternating sides. And the pens I'm using for this setup, in case you were wondering, are the Tombow 192, which is the asparagus green, and the Tombow N89, which is my favorite light grey. I won't show you a grid spacing cheat sheet for this one, but just know that I've left the top row empty. I've started drawing my lines from the second row and alternated every second dot grid space, and I've done 6 lines of each colour before I switch to the other one. For my next 2 spreads, I'm going to do something similar, just do a little bit of decoration on the page so that the winner can use this spread however they like, whether that's for tracking something or printing a little photo to represent each month. I'm just going to keep my decoration to the top left corner and the bottom right corner here and make some little collages so they have lots of page space left over to use however they like. And when I do the mystery journal, I also like to include a little selection of the stationery that I've used to put it together, so that if the winner of this journal wants to just make this a junk journal page, then they have some things to do that with that will look really cohesive with the rest of the theme. If you like sneak previews of things, then definitely check out my vlog that's coming later this month. I will be updating it with some of the later themes that I include in this journal as I'm putting them together, so you can get a little preview of what might be to come for the rest of the 6 months in this journal. That vlog will be out most likely next week, so make sure that you're subscribed if that's something that you'd like to see. And we've got one more of these decorated but blank spreads to set up for the mystery journal. This time I'm going to move my decoration to the top and bottom and just add a little bit of something down the sides as well. So we've still got lots of space in the middle for planning, but there is also quite a bit of cuteness happening on the spread. It's actually so funny. I went through all of my stationery when I was planning out this theme, and I got out everything that I thought I would be using, which is quite normal. I'll usually get out more than I end up using. This time I had to keep going back into my stash and looking for more little pops of pink to include, and I found this sheet of washi that I have cut down into strips so that it sort of looks like a washi tape even though it was a sheet, and I kind of wish I'd stumbled across that one sooner because it is really cute. While I'm working on this very last spread, I thought I would let you know how to enter the giveaway for this journal in case you'd like it to become your own. First of all, you'll need to be subscribed to my YouTube channel here. If you are not already, you can hit the subscribe button and take care of that first criteria straight away. Second, you'll need to go into the video description and find the link to the Google form. On that form, you'll need to fill out your name and your email address so that I can get in contact with you if you are indeed the winner. And answer one question for me, and that question is this: what dream are you going to make a reality in 2025? This giveaway is open internationally, and the winner will be drawn on the 1st of December, Brisbane time 2025, which might be the 30th of November for some of you. That way I can get the journal in the mail as soon as possible and have the whole month of December for it to get through postage and arrive to you, ready for you to use in January. And even if this new journal setup isn't decorated in a style that vibes with you, I hope you still got some ideas from this video about ways that you could set up your pages in a functional way to benefit you for 2025. Not me forever changing my mind on where I want things on a spread, but with this last placement, we are finished with this setup. The mystery journal giveaway for the first half of 2025 is officially open now, and you can find the link to enter in the description. Don't forget, you also need to be subscribed. I'm off to get stuck into the rest of the layouts in this journal and have a really good time setting all of those up too. You won't see those until each preceding month. They'll come out the month before the month that they're for, if that makes sense. But if you are keen to get some more mystery journal content right now, I have a whole playlist of all of the mystery journal themes and setups that I did for 2024 that I will have linked on the screen at the end. Also, a little reminder that there are links in the description to every single piece of stationery that I've used to set this up, if I can find a link for them. Once again, a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and helping make the mystery journal possible, and a huge thank you to you for watching this video all the way to the end. Here's that link to the mystery journal playlist that I promised you earlier, and also a link to a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.